Talk Show. Recorded live.
Welcome to the Castle Dracula Horror Movie Podcast, where everything's made up and the points don't matter. No, wait, that's whose line is it anyway? Which is a great show, by the way. This is the podcast where we talk about horror movies. Today we're talking Sleepy Hollow, starring the devilishly handsome Johnny Depp. Bear in mind that if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have. So, warning, spoilers ahead. Our usual host, Jason Henderson, has been abducted by aliens, but we can't let a little thing like alien abduction stop us from recording an episode so close to Halloween, so the show must go on. With me today are Count Dracula, Lord and Master of the long-running horror comic Halloween Man, Jamie Bewitching Barr, who is always cooking up trouble as the lead singer and upright bassist for the all-female band Danger Cakes. She keeps her cauldron full with little children, whom she educates with the majesty of song. And Tony Scaravaggio, comic book author of Devilishly Good Comics and the lead singer of Deserts of Mars, whose music brings the ghouls to the yard. And I'm Julia Guzman, and I'm an attorney and Spanish teacher who lives in your child's closet after dark. Boo! Tonight, we have both tricks and treats as we talk about Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. It should come as no surprise that this film is based on Washington Irving's story of the same name, about a character named Ichabod Crane. In this version, however, he's an investigator who is sent to Sleepy Hollow to investigate the deaths of 3 people who have allegedly been decapitated by a headless horseman. It should come as no surprise that this Tim Burton film stars Johnny Depp and has Danny Elfman's score. Missing, however, is Helena Bonham Carter. Instead, our heroine is played by Christina Ricci, and our not-so-much-of heroine is played by Miranda Richardson. So let's start out with some first impressions, and welcome to you guys. I guess we'll start with Jamie. Are you there, Jamie?
I'm here. So the first time I saw this movie was in the theaters when it first came out, and I wasn't too tickled with it, maybe because I kept thinking, like, I'm actually from, like, a short little jaunt from actual Sleepy Hollow, and kept, comparing everything. But I don't know. It's definitely grown on me. I like it a lot more now than I did then. But it's a fun little Halloween time flick, and yeah.
Excellent. All right. How about you, Mr. Count Dracula?
This is actually my favorite Tim Burton movie, which is kind of weird because most people are like, "What? Not Ed Wood? Not Edward Scissorhands? Come on, you're crazy." And I'm like, no, this has everything you could possibly want from a Headless Horseman movie. It's got awesome decapitations. It's got this great, crazy, gothic atmosphere. And it has Johnny Depp playing the world's wussiest action hero. What can you possibly... The Headless Horseman is awesome in this flick. There's so much to like here, and I'm ecstatic to be talking about this.
Fantastic. And Mr. Tony?
I don't like it maybe as much as Drew. I kind of, to me, it's a little bit of a mess, but it's like a kind of a cool mess. So that's, I really enjoyed it. I don't think I'd seen it since I'd seen it in the theater. I have one of the action figures I have the Horseman, which was an awesome action figure, but it never really. I never really thought like, oh man, I should really watch that a bunch of times. But I think it's cool. I think there's a lot of good elements in it. There's a lot of kind of Tim Burton being Tim Burton, for better or worse, depending on how you react to that. Like all the tropes are there, and some nice homages here and there. Christopher Walken is awesome. There's as much stuff that I really, really enjoy as there is stuff where I'm just kind of like, okay. But, it clips along, and the last, act is really pretty awesome, so.
I think that Christopher Walken was actually uncredited, right? Like he was a surprise. That's what I heard.
Christopher Walken's kind of like at a weird place with this part because he's the Headless Horseman when he has a head on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I was a big. I liked all of the adaptations I can remember of Sleepy Hollow up until, and going forward on this. I haven't seen the show, though, so I don't know if that's any good. But, yeah, so I was really excited, actually, when this first came out. Wanted to like it more, but I still dig it. So.
The girls and I actually just watched a Smurfs version of Sleepy Hollow. So that, I guess it's called Smurfy Hollow. No, I don't remember, something like that. Anyway, it was kind of cute and funny. Well, I did enjoy this movie. I think I saw it when it came out, but honestly, it didn't feel very familiar at all, which is surprising to me because I'm such a Johnny Depp fan that I'm sure I must have seen it. But I think it was a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun, although it's a little bit more gory than I would usually like. But yeah, it's a pretty entertaining little flick, especially around Halloween time. So I'd like to hear what you guys. Let's start with hearing what you guys think of it compared with other Tim Burton films.
Well, I mean, he definitely, even though it's earlier, it definitely has the Sweeney Todd filter, even on The Village, which I guess it's nice because he does the contrast with The Village once everything's better, it's all nice and happy. It looks like Hobbiton, and before it's very New York City and The Village both have this similar really muted palette and everything. It was kind of funny that we did Dracula because Rain's wow, this is the beginning of the Coppola Dracula with the carriage and the seal and everything like that.
Because this one is they actually built the set. The whole thing is a set as opposed to filming it somewhere in England or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, 75% of it filmed on a sound stage. I guess the opening the opening sequence of events was the only part that was actually filmed in Tarrytown, New York, in Yonkers, which is literally right outside of Sleepy Hollow.
Wow.
But the set was built in England. It said, but that was the largest set that they ever built at the time. I thought maybe still even. But I don't know. I guess did they film some of it in New York and some of it in England? Is that how it worked, or?
Most of it was filmed. They said 75% of it was filmed on the sound stage in England. But like I said, only the beginning sequences, which they added on later, after the movie was already shot, was filmed in Tarrytown. That.
Right.
The carriage scene and them
gotcha.
sealing the envelope, which that could have been done anywhere, but they chose to do a little bit of it in the area, so that's kind of cool.
Well, it's funny that Tony mentions Coppola because isn't Francis Ford Coppola producer on this?
Oh, I didn't check on that. That's entirely possible. I think he might be, which might explain why it's got some Bram Stoker's Dracula DNA floating around it there. I like to think, thinking back on it when I saw it, I was thinking, first you want to compare Ichabod to kind of like Sherlock Holmes, but I think he's the world's wussiest Batman, actually. Dark Knight Detective. I kind of got that vibe instead in retrospect, because he's got all the stuff and his parents are dead, and I was like, hey, he's less Sherlock Holmes and more just really fey Batman.
Well, apparently he passes out something 5 times in this movie, so
yeah, there's a lot of
I would definitely go with the wussy part for sure.
Christina Ricci swoons a couple times in a row as well. So.
Yeah.
All that passing out, and just the general staginess of the acting, I really do kind of wonder if Tim Burton was acting, telling people to act as if they were in an old horror film, because when you watch a lot of,
he was trying to emulate the whole Hammer horror series and that type of feel. That's exactly what he was.
Yeah, that's what Tim Burton said that he was inspired by the Mario Bava and Hammer movies. And that's why he had Michael Goff in there. He brought Michael Goff out of retirement so that he could, and Christopher Lee was brought in as well so that they could be.
It's an awesome who's who of hey, that guy, awesome. Even if if you're not a film geek, you at least go, that guy I've seen in things, and it's all a huge chunk of the cast. I think it is really interesting how he decided to flesh out, because we've all seen the or most of us have probably seen, every Halloween some adaptation of, there's the Disney adaptation of Ichabod Crane, and it's always the, was it Brom Bones or wasn't it kind of twist, and people do it in different ways. In this, he goes, okay, well, that part's over. Like, he threw the pumpkin and stuff. And now we're on to,
Well, does he even ever throw a pumpkin, or is it only the guys that are messing with Ichabod?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, in the story, it's always was it Brom Bones? Was it a real horseman?
Right.
And do we know? And so they do the Brom Bones part and have him actually hit, Ichabod with the pumpkin. And then it goes from there to, like, Supernatural Land, which most of the adaptations don't. I think that was kind of cool. In fact, what's weird is, unlike a lot of Tim Burton stuff, that, Brom Bones, the jock, actually ends up being sort of heroic before he meets his terrible demise, which I thought was like, wow, usually it's, Anthony Michael Hall and Edward Scissorhands is just an ass, or the jocks are always just real super jerks, and he's kind of sort of tries to redeem himself, but that was.
I don't think Brom Bones is really kind of that a bad guy when you think about it in the context of the movie. I mean, he's here this guy comes in from New York City, and basically his wife to be suddenly starts getting all swoony in the knees over the guy. I think most men would react. Well, be similarly cold to
he jumps the gun a little bit, though. You gotta it was an honest mistake at first, and he's kind of like, hell, man, he does go after the guy and chunk a pumpkin at his head, which could have killed it. but that's a lot. Actually, part of the story. So,
the supernatural aspect of this, I remember sort of. I remember the film critic in the local paper in Dallas when this came out really did not like that they added that in. I remember them referring to it as the old Friday the 13th movie. To me, as much as I love the Washington Irving story, there's not a whole movie there. There's a good cartoon.
No.
But
that's why most of the adaptations are like 30 minutes, 45 at the most, I mean, what can you do? He comes there and he's a fish out of water and people try to scare him. And then it's, usually up to the storyteller to say if it's a Scooby-Doo story or if it's a real, and it really was a Headless Horseman, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, well, you kind of don't, if you haven't seen the movie, then you don't know if it's going to be, because especially when you have, Ichabod doesn't believe it, and then you have the fakers, so it is kind of surprising when he actually does turn out to be a real Headless Horseman. And the cool thing is that since they have now the computer effects, they have the head is just edited out, it's like green screen or whatever, and like they put like a blue mask on or something, and so it actually looks like a Headless Horseman instead of just somebody who's got an extra long torso, that's kind of like over their head. So that was kind of a neat effect.
Doesn't Christopher Walken just look like he's having the most fun ever when they first tell like the Hessian's backstory?
Well, yeah, with the pointy teeth.
So like gleefully, just
the pointy teeth. He has no lines. He just does a lot of grunting and going ha.
He just looks like when he's in the full he looks like how they describe the Hessian, like how much he loves combat. Like he just looks like, all right, it's time to just hack around, and like he just chews it up. It's so awesome. I really was like watching that going, man, that looks like he's just having
Maybe that was
a
glee. Maybe that was sheer terror because Christopher Walken hates horses.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, he didn't know how to ride them. He didn't bother telling him that till after. He didn't bother telling Tim Burton that till after he got cast. Yeah, I don't know how to ride horses, by the way.
Oh man. Well, that whatever it is, it's effective.
Well, I heard a story once, and I don't know if it's true, but every time you actually see Christopher Walken on a horse in this movie, it's an animatronic horse. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if it's true or not, but anytime you actually see the Headless Horseman Headless, it's important to note that that's Ray Park, and it's the same guy that Darth Maul.
Sure.
Oh,
well, he's so athletic and like he works it. I mean, it's really effective.
Well, they had that animatronic. I don't know if the horse was animatronic, because they kept talking about it's the type of horse is the Spanish horse. But I know that there's that horrible cardinal that was in the movie. That they had that little. And there was actually a funny story with that they could not find a cardinal in all of England, and finally, like, they were going nuts, and one day, like, I guess the handlers decided to dye a pigeon red. And
that's funny.
Burton just was like, "Oh my God, no! Like, what is wrong with you people?" And that's why they ended up using an animatronic cardinal. And he goes,
wow.
and it's
it looks so fake. That's the thing. I didn't like the bird. Really threw it off for me, because it's like the birds in Mary Poppins, which I love that movie. But they have the little fake birds. There's that movie. I don't know. That kind of bugged me.
Anytime something looks like almost deliberately synthetic in this movie, though, I'm instantly thrown back to all the Universal monster movies I've watched. Like the woods looks wonderful. It's a wonderful looking woods that they have around the town of Sleepy Hollow, but it does not look real. And when Jamie found out that this was not in a location, because I was thinking it was in a location, I was like, where on earth did they find a forest that looks like the Universal backlot? And then you're like, oh no, this was soundstage in England. I was like, well, that makes so much sense.
Somebody said that it looked like that being in that forest, it seemed like you were walking around in Tim Burton's head.
Right.
But it's the whole idea was that they wanted to be able to control the lighting and the weather and everything. So
was it just me, or did you guys think, like, I think the tree looked like it kind of reminded me of a sandworm. I don't know if I'm like reading too much into it, but it just had that look to it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of...
The reason why the tree looked the way it was and that it actually went off to the side was because of the ceiling of the soundstage was so low that they had to do something with it. So kind of make it look like scary and tall, but not straight up, because they couldn't go straight up. I just thought that was pretty funny.
That's cool. I mean, it looks nice because it's all twisted and distorted, so it works for that.
Well, it's sort of shades of Nightmare Before Christmas, because they have all the circular, weird, hunched over things in Halloween Town, and that's what I always thought that tree was a callback for. I didn't ever realize that it was more practical than that.
Well, but also he has the pumpkin scarecrow.
Yeah.
From Nightmare Before Christmas is in there, which I think is so cool. I want to make one of those for next year for Halloween.
Oh,
I think that's so neat.
That'd be awesome.
Just the way this movie looks, like, as much as we can go, people like to rip into Tim Burton now. I mean, we've done... I don't know how many Tim Burton movies now on this show, but we've done a few more other than this, and it's become almost trendy to badmouth the guy. But the way this movie looks is just stunning, and hardly anybody can pull off this look better than him.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, for as much as we go, oh look, Tim Burton's doing Tim Burton again. Like, anytime anybody tries to do Tim Burton, it comes off just super put on and fake. Like,
I think it's great that he has such a strong identity.
No, I agree. Like, it's become, like Drew said, like, it's cool to case on him.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something there, because people have tried, and it just comes off as like, yeah, I don't think you're getting whatever that magic is. It seems impossible to reproduce.
Absolutely.
And I do think for better or worse, he kind of falls back on some tropes that you're kind of like, man, I want to see you move forward a little bit, maybe. But I mean, I thought The Return was actually Frankenweenie. Like, I really enjoyed Frankenweenie a lot, and I think I was kind of burnt out a little bit, and then I saw that and I was like, okay, more like that. Like, you're back. Come on, man. You know, and I still enjoy like all the movies.
After seeing Dark Shadows, I was surprised at how much I liked Frankenweenie, because Frankenweenie was such a good flick, and hopefully we'll get around to doing that one at one point.
Apples to oranges, like Frankenweenie is an animated movie.
Yeah, but it's still like
it's from the same man.
Yeah, like I mean, it still has all the stuff. But this, I didn't see Dark Shadows at all. I still haven't seen it.
Let's compare it. Let's compare it then with Sweeney Todd, because that's what we were talking about before we started the official conversation. What do you guys think about it compared with Sweeney Todd?
Man, it's really hard because of the musical aspect of things of Sweeney Todd. It's certainly. This movie could exist in the world of Sweeney Todd, like hands out. Like when you go to New York, it's like the New York in the world of Sweeney Todd London. Yeah. In fact, at the end when he's walking with Christina Ricci, I'm like, and then this is right before the judge decides he wants to have Christina Ricci and turns Johnny Depp into Sweeney Todd in New York because she's blonde, and I'm like. Oh, look, it's the prequel to Sweeney Todd. I never noticed that until I'd rewatched this. But, I like Sweeney Todd, of course. So, I was surprised that it didn't seem, like I said, I wasn't tired of seeing this, and I would watch it again probably more often. Although, I have learned that, iTunes is not my friend as far as renting lately. And they're, by the way, the only ones that have Sleepy Hollow for rent digitally and Halloween, like for whatever reason. Well, I had credits for iTunes, but there's problems with sound on if you use a PC, and that's not very cool. But yeah, I like it. I don't know why I don't own it. It seems like one of the movies I should have just around.
You know, I got this. HEB always does their horror movie displays around Halloween time, and they had this for $4.99, and I got it as an impulse buy a few years ago, and I've watched it, almost every year around Halloween time, and it's just such a good fall movie. As far as how it compares to Sweeney Todd, I mean, the thing that I like about this versus Sweeney Todd is that, I mean, they both kind of exist in that sort of classic horror movie universe. This, I think, almost inhabits it a little bit more fully. There's just so much about this movie that caters directly to the sorts of things that I like. And not to say that Sweeney Todd doesn't, but Sweeney Todd, because it's a musical, and I do like musicals, but because it's a musical, it has to hit certain specific things that this movie doesn't have to ever really take into account.
Yeah. I also agree with you about, like, the homage to Hammer is really awesome. Oh, and I love the nod to the Frankenstein windmill. When that shows up, you're just like, if you're a Universal fan, you're just like, yay! Even though it's not quite, it's so close that it's like, hey, I'm back home, Like it gives, and I'm sure, Tim Burton was probably pretty freaking happy to be able to build that.
Yeah, and unfortunately they couldn't do it on the actual sound stage because it was too tall.
Right.
So they had to do it elsewhere. But yeah, it's like I said, the sails alone weighed over 2 tons. That was really neat. It was a really neat scene too. Let's talk through the story a little bit and what you guys think of it in terms of compared with other interpretations of the story. What do you think about Ichabod Crane being a police constable instead of teacher?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's kind of interesting because it gives him a little bit of more business to do than just being kind of a scared guy. Guess I didn't. It's one of those things where I guess it's just such a part of the story that I didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
I think his reasoning for getting sent there and kind of the whole reason is both his saving grace and its crutch in this world where there's supernatural. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, because he gets sent there because he's too much of a troublemaker back in where he's from, and so Christopher Lee, as the judge, actually sends him over there. And Jason pointed out when we were watching it that the scene, when Christopher Lee is telling him it is you, Ichabod Crane, who are put to the test. He's got did you notice that he had the wings, like the black wings behind him?
Oh yeah.
He looked like the Angel of Death, and Jason said that that's borrowed from Marvel's Dracula Lives #1 cover.
Awesome.
He spotted that.
I was watching the commentary on it, and Tim Burton said that was actually a happy accident. That
oh,
wasn't
really?
Even,
oh, wonderful.
That's
very happy accident.
On purpose.
It's nice
so
to
he said
come
maybe
out there.
just Lee, it just happens, you know.
He shouldn't have admitted that. He should have kept that to himself. That's so funny.
You know, him being a constable, I think, is another fine example of horror movie logic. Because in reality, Ichabod Crane would be absolutely right in saying there is no ghost. These murders were committed by a normal human being. You guys are all crazy. In reality, he would be right. But because we are in horror movie land, all these guys get to scoff and cut and kind of mock Ichabod Crane, and we're kind of like, yeah, Ichabod, well, get with the program. There's a headless horseman around here. Why can't you see clear? These guys are terrified with good reason. There's a headless guy running around chopping off people's heads, and that's only exists in the world of horror films. Are you able to follow that line of logic?
Where there's no Scully going, this is ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas, and it does make it. That's where it makes the departure from the original story. Is the original is like superstition can get even some of the most well-learned people, and that small town politics will get rid of the troublemaker no matter what, and that kind of way it works out. And this, it goes, okay, well, we're done with that part. Now it's time for witches, and oh man, and the witch who's does the scrying is so awesome.
Yeah, tell the any listeners who may not remember how the film how that whole thing plays out.
Yeah, so Ichabod goes to see a witch, who we find out who exactly she is, who's veiled, and then when she's doing her spell to scry on what's going on, she just turns into this, eyeballs pop out, and her tongue lashes out, and she turns into this horrible, just hellish crone. And that's done so well. Oh, man, it's such a good effect. Even, the CG is a tiny bit dated now, but wow. It's still
it's a little bit
cool.
Harryhausen-ish.
Yeah, it's still awesome. Kind of Large Marge-ish in a way.
It's From Hell, that movie, she does that. I've seen that. The Sam Raimi movie From Hell, because it's very, almost comedic, such a comedic, scare.
Yeah.
You mean Drag Me to Hell?
Drag Me to Hell, not From Hell. I'm sorry, that's
another Johnny Depp movie.
Well, actually, I forgot now that if it is Large Marge-ish, that was Tim Burton as well. So.
Oh yeah. Right,
but,
and Beetlejuice kind of.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking was Beetlejuice. It's it very much reminds me of Beetlejuice, but that like Jamie's saying, that's sort of creepy yet comedic feel, and Tim Burton does that just about better than anybody, with the exception of maybe Sam Raimi, who could give Tim Burton a run for his money.
Yeah, it's hard to think of better people who do that. I mean, some people are successful, but it's hard to be as successful on point as as those two guys.
What about the violence? Too much? 18 beheadings. I have to say that apparently Michael Gambon said that he wanted to keep the severed head and send it via proxy to interviews and dinner parties.
Oh, that's awesome.
That would be so great.
Too much violence, personally, I could always deal with a little bit more, but that's just me.
I didn't think it was, I mean, even though people are getting, like, their heads chopped off, I didn't think that it was actually that violent. Like, it was gruesome. I mean, there was lots of, like, blood, but the blood was even, like, that very hammer, bright red that looks, really fake.
Looks
but
like red ketchup.
Yeah, I thought the most grotesque parts were the tree, when he's cutting into the tree. For some reason, that, of all things, me.
That was pretty horrific. Yeah, that's because that's the thing. So they find, just to explain what that part is, they find where the headless horseman originates, and it's this tree that has that he starts chopping at the tree, and it's bleeding, and it turns out that all the heads, because the heads always disappear, they're always collected by the headless horseman. So all the heads are in this tree. So when he starts chopping it, all these heads sort of spill out. And that's like the portal to hell the headless horseman jumps out of whenever he's beckoned, which we find out later that he's being beckoned, and comes out. And that, yes, I agree that was so gross when he's cutting the tree and it's just bleeding.
Yeah, but even that, like, it's so just hammer horror blood that it to me wasn't as gruesome as some other things. And they had cool things like, hey, the heads look this way because it's basically a devil blade, and so it cauterizes it, so there's hardly any blood, and you have these stumps, and the stumps are pretty damn gruesome, but it's not. I mean, I don't think it's more gross than what you'll see on an episode of CSI a lot of times, or any of those kind of procedural shows.
Same time, I got to give Tim Burton his due. I mean, this is really the only straight horror film in his entire catalog, and he does have a talent for cinematic gore, because I mean, I always think about that one time where he gallops down on the town was it the notary or he chops the guy's head off and it spins around 6 times before falling off.
Awesome.
That's
amazing. But again, it's done such a crazy. There's a certain really dark humor to the way even that happens, and he follows that up by it rolling in between Johnny Depp's legs, and the horseman comes and stabs right between. And he's like, but all of that has a certain kind of gallows humor to it that's pretty awesome as well. Which, again, it's hard to beat Tim Burton at that in a major way.
So then the reason that he doesn't kill Johnny Depp at that point or at any other point when he encounters him is because he's on assignment. Right. Anybody want to talk about his assignment? Who's controlling the horsemen?
Yeah, well, I mean, Drew?
No, you do.
Well, I guess that's part. He also, what he's doing here is also a mystery. So you're pretty sure you've seen a bunch of this, and you've also, seen or read The Crucible. You're kind of like, well, I'm pretty sure somebody's trying to grab land. Something's happened. It ends up that it's much more kind of convoluted than that. But the people you think is actually a witch who is actually one of the girls who saw Christopher Walken and, helped him, both saw and helped him meet his demise because they're, crack a branch that everybody goes who's after Christopher Walken finds him. Ends up that, her, I guess what was her mother gets killed, her family gets killed.
Her father died.
Yeah.
And her parents or her family's booted off the land.
Right.
But the scene, I have to say, the scene where we see who she is so cool because when Christopher Walken is the Hessian, he's kind of over in the woods, running away from the people who are after him, and he sees these creepy little girl twins, just like from The Shining, and he goes, and one of the little girls just snaps this twig, and it turns out that that's her, and that the other one is the creepy witch, right?
Right, because they're both witches.
Yeah.
So it ends up being more than just the land grab thing and turns into a revenge story, which is actually really interesting and ties into, again, also ties back to kind of witch trial stuff in that era. And, where the witch is actually, and her sister actually isn't, she's exiled, but she's not a bad witch. And this, even though she does freak out and has an awesome scene, then, but she's good enough to chain herself to the table when she does that, so that she doesn't, she tries not to hurt people, I guess, if possible. But
and the way she controls him is because she has his skull.
Right.
So she's got, as long as she has his skull, she can get him to take other people's heads as sort of a, this effort to replace his own. What do you guys think about the scene then when he gets his skull back?
Oh man, that was some really cool special effects. I like the reverse transformation where he actually becomes, changes from headless guy to Christopher Walken again. And subsequently grabs her and gives her the nasty teeth bite kiss.
Yes, that was so horrific.
Yeah,
horrific. So he's gonna kill Johnny Depp, and Johnny Depp sees Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci, and he grabs the skull, he throws it to him, and so he puts it on, and he does this dramatic transformation back into Christopher Walken. Then he grabs up the Miranda Richardson, who has been controlling him, and gives him this bizarre bite kiss type thing, and then takes her into the tree, which of course kills her physically, and her hand is sticking out of the tree now, but presumably her soul is eternally in hell with him, which is just such a horrible. I mean, she kind of had it coming, but still.
He says that she swore her soul to Satan if the Hessian would do her bidding, basically, if she could have control of him.
Yeah.
And she's promised that, when she's a little girl, she promised that when she's, watches him die.
Yeah.
Oh, so
that's horror.
Awesome. Yeah, and then also the other, but they do a lot of cutaways. So even though you see her, that just gout of blood where the tree crushes her is from a distance. The same with Brom Bones being hacked into, at least two pieces, if not quartered by the Hessian, is a distant shot too, which in some ways can be more gruesome because you see just pieces flying around. But that stuff is really, and actually if that was CG blood, that's some of the better CG blood I've seen as well. Usually it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look right. And that, I guess, because of the way everything else is shot, maybe I gave it more of a pass just because the feel of it. But, yeah, and, and before that, where there's the awesome chase where he's chasing them down in a carriage, that, too, is really pretty amazing. Nods to Raiders or the movies that inspired Raiders, more so than that. That was really, that's really intense. And, the fact that's on a sound stage is pretty amazing, too. Because it seems like it covers a lot of ground.
Mhm. Well, this is it's fun. It's fun. There's a lot of neat effects and a lot of neat twists or whatever. So yeah, let's go ahead and do our final thoughts, and then we can do some endorsements. So Jamie, do you have anything you wanted to add here?
Not really, no. But I guess I do like the movie now. Like I said, it grew on me. I like when I first saw it, I thought the acting was pretty stodgy and or stagey, but it's it definitely has grown on me quite a bit. And like I said, it is kind of a perfect movie for this time of year, and especially with the fall scenes and everything. It just it's a perfect night to watch it. So I hope people are gonna tune in and check it out sometime.
Okay, great, thanks. Drew?
Well, as I said, I've always derived a great deal of enjoyment from this movie. In fact, talking about it kind of makes me want to watch it again. It's it's a good movie to pop in, not just on Halloween, but any time the weather's cold, throughout this time of year, and just cuddle up with somebody that you like, maybe have some popcorn or something hot chocolate or something else that's warm, and really just it's a good old-fashioned horror flick, and there's not too many of those made these days. So I just really appreciate what they accomplished with this movie.
What? Tony?
Yeah, I think I agree with Jamie. I was like, it was good when I first saw it. Now I'm kind of like, I've come around to, hey, that is actually cooler than I remember. And that was a really pleasant surprise when you revisit something. You're like, this is neat. I'll watch this more often. Why haven't I before? So that's pretty cool. I also one thing I did forget. I really enjoy we've often talked about playing by the rules, like when things play by the rules. I love the part where he decides to attack the church and he can't get in, and he's just so frustrated. He's riding his horse around, his axe decays when it's on holy ground, all of that kind of stuff. It's just so cool to see, oh, wow, he has to, and then his solve for killing people when he's frustrated by not being able to go into the church. Oh, man, it's just so gruesome and so awesome. I really, there's so many good touches that, like I said, I'm pleasantly surprised. I think I like it more than I did when I first saw it, actually.
He is not, however, blocked by crossing the bridge, which he is in the stories, in the other stories.
Right.
So that's something that he's able to do freely. Interesting. I liked it. I liked the Danny Elfman score. That always adds a wonderful texture to any Tim Burton film or any movie that Danny Elfman's involved with, because it's just more. I don't know. There's just something really special and fun about that. And I like the look of it. I like the artist, like you keep saying about the Hammer, Drew, about how it sort of feels like a Hammer movie because of all the the color and everything. And I think that is what was being achieved with the built sets and the artificial lighting and all that. It just feels creepy. It doesn't feel, it doesn't feel real, but it feels creepy. It's a fun movie, and I'm always going to be a fan of anything Johnny Depp's in, even if it's not that great. So it kind of wins on that for me. How about endorsements? We can do the same order. Jamie, if you want to tell us what you got going on or what you encourage people to take in.
Sure. Well, if you're on the northeast side of the country, I would say I'd recommend the Headless Horseman Hayrides up in outside. So I think it's technically Port Ewan or Town of Esopus, New York. Phenomenal. It's probably one of the best horror rides in the country, and they've been doing it for over 20 years now, and every year it gets more and more elaborate, and it's huge. It's gigantic, and like I said, it's right in just outside of the actual Sleepy Hollow. So, and they do have a real horseman, so it's pretty phenomenal. It's definitely worth the money, and it's definitely a great night of entertainment. And if you're on the southern side of the country, Danger Cake will be performing at the Leap of Faith Halloween benefit. Leap of Faith is a nonprofit organization where they provide theater arts classes and dance classes to underprivileged children at no cost to their families. So it's kind of a great little benefit that we'll be putting on at Sinners on Friday, October 25th. And then, of course, there's the Halloween Man Shock Hop for Dias de los Muertos this year at Flamingo Cantina November 2nd. So, if you're just out to dance and rock out, there's a lot of great bands, and it supports Mr. Drew Edwards' Halloween Man comic book. So, lots of great, fun things coming up.
Excellent. Thank you. Drew, what about you?
Well, as I've said the last several weeks, as my birthday was the end of last month, I've been kind of rooting through all the various different things that were given to me in tribute. And one of the things that was given to me is I got several seasons of the TV show Supernatural. I've plugged the show before. I'm sure actually a lot of our listeners probably already watch it. But if you like, your TV shows a little bit along the vein of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but maybe thought that was a little bit too highbrow, here's your chance to enjoy the redneck equivalent. And let me tell you, it's got monsters, it's got muscle cars, it's got classic rock, so many things like it, and it's usually pretty funny, and occasionally it actually manages being scary. So if you have not checked out Supernatural, I hear all previous seasons are now on Netflix, and a new season just started up.
Excellent. Awesome, Tony?
I'm going to have to catch that, Drew. I know you. I've been stupid and haven't seen it. And there's a couple of things that I had been procrastinating about seeing on Netflix that just left recently, and I just feel like an idiot because I was like, oh, that'll be there. And so Jamie's a convert to Supernatural because she kind of resisted my enthusiasm for the show, and she's kind of joined in there with me. It's popular enough it got an anime like in Japan, so there's got to be something there. That's pretty. That doesn't happen a lot. I think Marvel.
I've not seen the anime yet.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of cool though. Because of everything going on, I haven't been out or gotten new things other than new Red Fang and new Monster Magnet, which I'd already bought before I got furloughed. So I don't have a lot of stuff that I'm checking out, but I will mirror Jamie's sentiment that anytime you can see Danger Cakes, you should, because they are awesome and they do a lot of stuff for charities, and again, they're awesome. So anybody who can see them should see them, and they should see them often without fail. So.
Aw, thanks.
Excellent. Well, I personally am not going to do endorsements. I'm going to pass along a couple things that Jason has endorsed recently on his Facebook, because I think that he would appreciate that. And since he's been abducted by aliens, I feel like I owe him that. So he endorses Greg Scott's graphic novel Guardian Angel of New York, because Strange Attractors. It's a Best of New York award winner, and Greg has done a lot of work with Jason. He's an amazing artist, and so I'm sure that they would both love for you to take a look at that. And then the other thing is Stefan Petrucca's X-Files comic series is now on hardback and on the Kindle, and Jason did a review, because back in the day he reviewed all those comics, all those X-Files comics, individually, and so Jason threw together all of his old reviews and put them back up on his blog. So check out Stephen Petrucca's X-Files comics and Jason's review of it. And and that's it for right now. So I appreciate you guys putting up with me as your host, and hopefully the aliens will return our usual host back to us next week, because he's much better at this than I am.
You have to just great. If you just play the right music, hopefully their heads will explode and we'll get Jason back.
There you go. All right, thanks. And then I don't know what we have going for next week, but hopefully it'll be something very appropriate for the week of Halloween. And I know Halloween Man is out there for us to enjoy this time of year as well, right, Drew?
Well, we got some big things that hopefully I will be able to talk about the next episode. But there's a big announcement for Halloween Man in the next few weeks.
Ooh, I'm psyched already.
All right.
It's going to be awesome.
Thanks, you guys. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, you too.
Night.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.